guiding my answers here is that I'm looking to see what the Supreme Court has said. You notice that in the testimony about the censorship industrial complex.
I got that part.
No, I just want to clarify.
No, but I've only got 5 minutes. Your answer is no, as I appreciate it. Let me ask you a couple questions. You wrote a law review article in December of 2023 for the New York University Law Review, and it was about the two cases, Bruin, Supreme Court case, and Dobbs. Remember that article?
Yes, I do.
Okay. In this article, you said, I'm going to quote your words, "Taken together, these two cases demonstrate that the Supreme Court has embraced the use of the Constitution as a tool of racial patriarchy," end quote. Did you say that?
Yes.
Okay. And then you went on to say, quote, "When the Supreme Court declares that there is a constitutional right to armed self-defense in public, it openly embraces and promotes a culture that privileges white men's ability to terrorize and kill those that they perceive as threats," close quote. Did I read that correctly?
I believe so. Thank you for reading.
Okay. And did you also say in that article, I'm going to quote again, quote, "by simultaneously expanding white men's right to kill and constricting women's right not to die, this Supreme Court," referring to the current United States Supreme Court, "has turned the Constitution into a homicide pact as well," close quote. Did you write that?
That sounds like me.
Okay. In November of 2024, you tweet, don't you?
I'm not sure what the current terminology is for it, but yes, I am sometimes on the social platform that was formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, you're on a lot, aren't you?
I'm not sure what the relevance of that is.
You're trying to be provocative on there, don't you?
Again, I'm not sure what the relevance.
Well, let me show you the relevance. On November 7th, 2024, from your tweet, here's one of your tweets at 2:41 p.m. Quote, "The majority of Americans hate women. The majority of Americans hate women more than they love anything, including democracy," close quote. Did I read that correctly?
I am not sure what this has to do with the subject matter of this.
Did you say it?
I do not have those words in front of me. I probably said something along those lines, but what is the relevance of that?
Here it is, big as Dallas, right there.
Yes.
But your political beliefs don't impact your feelings about President Biden or President Trump.
I don't have feelings about either of them. What I have
Sounds
is
to me like you have your favorite feeling is anger.
The exchange between Senator John Kennedy and Professor Mary Ann Franks became much more than a routine discussion about constitutional law. Kennedy appeared to be testing a very specific claim, whether Franks' personal political views could be separated from the constitutional analysis she was presenting to the Senate. And rather than debating her opinions in the abstract, Kennedy went straight to her record. He brought up her 2023 Law Review article and read several statements attributed to her about the Supreme Court, the Constitution, gun rights, abortion, race, and gender. Some of the language was extremely provocative. Franks had characterized the court's approach in terms of racial patriarchy and described the Constitution in extraordinarily harsh terms. Kennedy's point was straightforward. If these are genuinely her views, shouldn't senators and the American public be allowed to know about them when evaluating her credibility as a constitutional scholar? Franks, however, appeared to see the questioning differently. She repeatedly tried to bring the discussion back to the constitutional issues before the committee, while Kennedy kept returning to the same basic question, do you stand by what you wrote? That distinction is important. A legal scholar is absolutely entitled to criticize the Supreme Court. In fact, constitutional scholarship has always involved fierce disagreements about the meaning of the Constitution. Scholars on the left and right have criticized Supreme Court decisions for generations. But Kennedy was making a different argument. His concern was not simply that Franks disagreed with conservative justices. His concern was whether someone who has publicly made such strong political and ideological statements can simultaneously assure senators that those beliefs have no influence on her professional judgment. That's where the hearing became particularly interesting. Kennedy also brought up Frank's social media statements, including a post in which she reportedly wrote that the majority of Americans hate women more than they love anything, including democracy. That's a remarkably broad statement. And whether someone agrees with Frank's politically or not, it's reasonable to ask what such a statement reveals about the author's view of the American public.
Let me ask you this. You issued another tweet. This was in May of 2022. You've just been tweeting up a storm. You said, quote, "There's a reason why the conservative-dominated Supreme Court thinks the Constitution does not contain a right to an abortion, but is convinced that it contains an individual right to possess firearms. And that reason is white male supremacy," close quote. Did I read that correctly?
Is there a question in this?
Did I read that correctly? That's
Is there
my
a question that is relevant to this hearing?
Did I read that correctly? Do you really think that the United States Supreme Court, you're an officer of the court, is guided by white male supremacy?
I believe that the First Amendment prohibits the president and other state officials for punishing people for
Did you honestly say that, Professor? And you expect us,
that the First
as a
Amendment,
Democratic witness, to take you seriously? Are you kidding me?
I believe that you should take
You
the First
heard of
Amendment
curb your
seriously, sir.
enthusiasm? Here's my saying, curb my nausea.
I believe that you should take the
time
First
has
Amendment.
expired.
Constitutional scholars often use deliberately forceful language to challenge institutions they believe are failing to protect constitutional rights. So the real question isn't simply, did Professor Franks criticize the Supreme Court? The more important question is whether those criticisms demonstrate an ideological commitment that could affect her legal judgment, or whether they are simply examples of academic and political expression protected by the First Amendment. And that is where Kennedy's questioning becomes politically powerful. He didn't need to prove that Franks was wrong about every issue. He didn't even need to convince the room that the Supreme Court was right. All he had to do was put her published words on the record and ask whether she still stood behind them. That strategy has become a familiar feature of congressional hearings. Senators frequently use a witness's previous statements, articles, interviews, and social media posts to test their credibility. Sometimes it produces genuine accountability. Other times, it becomes political theater. Kennedy wasn't really asking, "Are you liberal?" He was asking, "Do your own words tell us something about how you approach the Constitution?" At the same time, there is a legitimate counterargument. Believing the Supreme Court has made deeply flawed decisions does not necessarily mean a scholar cannot analyze constitutional law professionally. Objectivity does not always mean having no opinions. It can also mean applying a consistent legal method even when the conclusion is unpopular. So perhaps the biggest